So today I'm in Jakarta and I'm announcing a whole new concept in technical analysis, and I really cannot wait to share it with you. So let's get down to it. Okay, so I'm back in my hotel room. It's Friday, the 6th of October. Welcome to Charts Today. It's the morning in Asia with still small hours in Europe, and the US markets have closed. So taking a look at the charts, of course, we're using these new targets, a whole new way of thinking about technical analysis, and let's just run through the charts. So we see the dollar index here. We've activated this downside target here on the 60-minute chart. This is 0.1%. The interesting thing, if we look at the long-term chart of the dollar, is we've got these upside targets and downside target not yet activated. This is the weekly chart, so this is the long term, and so we're really waiting for a move out of this range to count these targets. And we can see the historic targets. We're not really thinking about these now because we're moving into what's going to happen to the new targets in train. So really quite key there. Looking at the euro, that means, of course, that we are seeing a little bit of an upside potential on the euro on the 60-minute chart. The daily is still bearish below the cloud, and no clear targets there yet on the daily. Looking at the yen, we see here, this is very much the picture, the downside target. We saw that weakness in the dollar, so downside target just showing through there. But if we break this 150 level, then we look on the short term to that 153. And interestingly, there on the daily, we had this 155. Of course, we could curve fit this data. We can look at the different time factors, and so that's one way we could look at it. But we know that this target may well have been met. The 150 level is really quite key. Sterling actually slightly down, and we see here again this upside target there just on that slightly weaker dollar on the short-term chart. Taking a look at the markets, the Nasdaq, we see a little bit of a recovery here on the 60-minute chart. This is the daily chart. We had this target given back in May. That was where we went to, nearly reached the target. And we see here now that we've got downside potential. If we fall through that 14,480 level, then we activate the downside target to around 13,000. So, but we are seeing a little bit of a reprieve here on the short-term chart. Two targets just given, one on the 27th of September and another one yesterday, not quite activated. So that's really quite key, and that's giving us target levels back into the sort of 15,000 level. We are moving below the cloud there on the Nasdaq, so that is quite interesting, and we'll look at some of the constituents towards the end of this video. But looking here, we see on the S&P Emini very much this downside target on the daily. We've crossed through on the cloud on the S&P 500, so that's the breadth really showing through now, that the most of the constituents on the S&P are dragging us below the cloud on the daily. If we look at the longer term chart on the S&P, we see here how we had those tram tracks of targets that were given, really quite interesting there, that they were given off the push off 2020. So we see here in 2021, this is the weekly chart. The long-term chart, we had this upside target, downside target nearly met, upside target met. We don't have a downside target yet on the long-term chart, but on the daily, we do have this downside target on the 60-minute chart. That target nearly met. We've got a new little upside target, not quite through the cloud yet. So quite a mixed picture there, but really quite interesting. Taking a look at the FTSE Future, we see these downside targets here on the daily. On the 60-minute chart, that downside target was given, and we've got a little new mini upside target. But realistically, the picture is a bit bearish there as well. And we could take a look at the long term on the FTSE Future, where we need a new high above 8,000 to activate this target to 10,000. So really, that's what we're waiting to see happen there. Taking a look at the DAX, if we go to the DAX cash, we see here on the cash index, really interesting picture again, downside target pushing lower, So again, we have this tussle where on the short term, we've got an upside target not activated, a short-term downside not activated. That's almost certainly going to play out today, but this downside target there on the DAX, and we're below the cloud on the daily, so we can really start to ignore those big upside targets for the moment. This is the target that's in train. Taking a look at some of the other markets here, we can look at Japan. This is the 400 index, the Nikkei, and we've had really strong, the long-term picture on Japan has been really quite strong. These targets met on the weekly chart, so they were given back in 2022, they've been met in 2023, but with these longer historical targets really look a little bit off the cards, and maybe this upside target was met. A new downside target will be activated if we fall below these levels. 20,000 is the key level there, and on the daily chart it's probably 19,950. So really watching those activation levels to see whether these targets get activated. So that's quite key. Looking at China, really quite interesting here. Downside targets, waiting for a new activated downside target on the daily chart. And on the 60-minute chart, we see how these targets have really played through. That target that was given, not really activated, and see we've got another target here not yet activated, so it's all about the downside there of the Chinese market. So really quite interesting. Taking a look at the index, the Sensex in India, really still looking very bullish on the daily chart. Nothing to show really on the 60-minute chart. We look at the long-term picture on the Sensex. This is the weekly chart, remember, and it says they're long-term, so we're reminded of that. We see here this move some 20% higher, still on the cards, and these targets being given and met, really quite key there on the Sensex. And we've got these targets here. This one was just activated some 40% higher, 20% and 40% higher. Really one shine through market. Of course, this is the medium term and the long term targets. Looking at the Aussie market, quite a different picture here. Downside targets on the daily, and on that 60-minute chart, these targets activated, pushing some potentially 8% lower, 4 and 5% lower. So it's really hard to be bullish about Australian stocks at the moment. Looking at some of the energy mix, we'll look at Brent Crude, but we will go to the European energy mix. We see here on Brent Crude, we were waiting for that upside target to be activated. That didn't happen. These downside targets kicking in. 83.26 was given at 89.50, and we've got to 84, so we're nearly there. So really quite key there, and that's actually happened much faster. It was said to, when this was given on the 4th, that it might happen by the 12th of October. Well, we've got there very, very quickly indeed. So let's look at some of the other commodities. We'll come back to the energy mix. We've got wheat. Really clear downside targets there, although on the short term we've got a couple of upside targets. Corn, similar. So really interesting. Lots of downside targets there on corn, although on the short term, on the 60-minute chart, we are seeing some counter trend moves. Remembering we're really trading against the trend there. Gold still looking pretty bearish on these medium-term charts, and the short term we're just waiting for the new downside target to be activated. US 10-year yields, no big surprises here. This target was given back at the beginning of August, 4.79. That's where we got to. Got an interesting picture here, a little bit of a pullback in yields. Still have further to run potentially, but for the moment this is the new target that's in train. So really quite key there. Apple, again, another interesting one. Target given and met on the 60-minute chart, on the daily chart, sorry, but this downside targets, two downside targets clustering, pointing this way. Got a little bit of a recovery there, but for the moment, it'd be brave person to be buying Apple. And if we look at the long-term chart, we've got this new downside target that is just dominating. We're still bullish above the cloud, but that's the picture on Apple. And of course, you can look at any stock you like. It's really very simple. You can just click on any chart and just press the T key. So if I open the Aussie market here, press the T key, it just puts the trends and targets straight on. So it's all rules-based, really quite key. A quick look at the energy mix, some of the shorter-term charts. This is the carbon emissions chart, and here we've got a little bit of an upside target for today. And if we look at the the short term for gas. This is TTF, lots of downside targets there. You really couldn't be bullish in the last few days. This is the 4th of October, yesterday, and today we've got a little mini upside target, but be brave. This is really lots of downside targets. That's it for today. Until Monday, happy charting. Bye for now.